right, y'all. All right, y'all. This is your girl Rachel Hill, and welcome to her in the Huddle on WOVU and 95.9 FM, also known as the First Lady Sports. And I'm here with my girl Cleveland Kate. I'm going to give you some of the hot sports talk by women on the radio. She joined me today in the world. And thank you so much for joining us. And we have so much to get into today. Let's get into it. But first, I got to check and see how my girl doing. Cleveland Kate. What's going on? How you doing, man? How was your weekend, girl?
You don't even want to know, Rachel. You don't even want to know.
I don't want to know.
We'll just skip it.
Do I first of all, let me just ask one question.
No.
I was gonna say, do I gotta throw hands?
No, you're good. We're good.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure.
No, this as you know, this weekend was Easter, right?
Yeah. Uh-oh.
It's not even like that. Tuesday, my daughter who lives with us tested positive for COVID.
I'm sorry.
We have been quarantined in the house since then. We did not have Easter with the family. The other three girls all had dinner at my oldest daughter's house. The Easter basket stuff is still hidden away in my bedroom. Didn't see the kids, or the grandkids. We did a video chat with them. So we're doing Easter this upcoming Sunday. So I expected to have all this stuff to tell you about my daughters, and they're, 20 and 30 years old, and they're complaining about their Easter baskets, but they don't even know what's in their Easter baskets because they didn't come over.
Yeah. So they didn't make no demands of you this year and things like that. Okay.
Demands were made. It's just that there was nothing they could do about it because we weren't going to have anybody in the house. Like, I feel fine. My husband feels fine. Kara was sick. She was pretty sick for quite a few days. Obviously, we didn't have to go to the hospital. Not as bad as other people have had it with this disease, but she's on the mend. So I still got another week to stay home to make sure that I don't have it and give it to anybody else. And like I said, I'm feeling fine.
Yeah.
Other people have it worse than I do. It was just all my plans for the weekend. I'm up in smoke. I don't know that I got out of pajamas the entire weekend.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that.
I had Houston winning my NCAA bracket. I was in first or second place in the three groups that I'm in. Like, one of those groups pays $400 for first place, right? Houston goes down and I'm out. I'm done. That's
a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
$400.
Everybody else that was competition for me from a score standpoint had Gonzaga. So, my only hope was for Gonzaga to lose so that at least they wouldn't get those points for a championship win. But UCLA took them to overtime. I was really rooting for them. I would have loved. I don't know that I didn't Google it. I was going to go look. I don't know that an 11 seed has ever made it to the finals. It would have been a nice story for them. I saw more overtime games with them than I remember seeing in other entire tournaments.
They had 3 in the tournament.
It was in overtime again.
Yeah, 3 games in the tournament went into overtime.
Yeah, so I feel bad for. I mean, they tried. They did as best they could. So what are you going to do? Houston didn't even show up. I hate Baylor. Houston didn't even show up. I'm just aggravated. I'm aggravated.
You know what? The funny part was, well, first of all, why did you pick Houston out of all schools?
I have no idea.
Okay. So
I can't even give you I can't even give you stats or a good reason. I can just tell you that when I was looking at what I was looking at their traveling record. I looked at a lot of traveling records for these teams when I was picking them in my brackets because I felt like the COVID situation and the way they were having them in a bubble and no fans and all of that kind of stuff. I felt like teams who did well on the road would do better in the tournament environment.
Mm-hmm.
And it did me well, right? I was doing really well up until I had 3 of the Final 4 teams, but then the 2 teams I had losing were the 2 that moved on. So,
first of all, I got a question for you. I love your lashes. You got some mascara on, or what's going on with your lashes? They look so long and beautiful.
You don't make fun of me and my lashes.
They look good. What are you talking about?
I started going a couple months ago to this little nail salon by my house, and they have she's not a little girl. She's probably in her 20s, but she's one of those little teeny tiny Asian girls. Like, she looks like a stiff wind would blow her over.
Yeah.
And I get fake eyelashes gone now because I can't deal with having to put mascara on every day. So I just go get my fake lashes.
They look good. I was like, wait a minute, who is this? Okay, I see you, girl. I see you. They look good though. I like
I
them.
used all my wig money because I keep telling you if you would take me someplace, I would get some hair because
Well,
I
come
just can't deal
on.
with my hair every day either.
Come on, I'll try to find one that's not too far from you, so you know. So I'll try to find one on the west side. That's so funny. Yeah, no problem. Yeah,
Well, thank
I
you.
got
I love my eyelashes. My girls all tell me I'm bougie and they make fun of me, but I'll tell you what,
that
I
is
get
not
up every
bougie.
morning. This is the only makeup I wear. I get up every morning, my lashes are already on. I can start my day. Just get my
Yeah,
little brush out. I brush them out. I go.
they look good. I like
Thank
them. They
you.
look good on you. That's the first time I noticed. I you've been wearing them for a while, so I'm sorry, but I'm
No,
like,
it's okay.
all of a sudden it just stuck out, and I'm like, okay. Now that what's that? Je ne sais quoi about her or something like that. Je ne sais quoi. I didn't take French or whatever.
I'm having
But
a good eyelashes day.
so would you say that that game on Saturday night between Gonzaga and UCLA was a classic? Because I don't know if you saw on my Facebook before it went in overtime. I was like, this Gonzaga UCLA game is so good.
It was really good. And that's why I felt bad for, I mean, it's not even like, with UCLA being an 11 seed, it's not even like they didn't get Gonzaga's best.
Yeah,
They got a great game out of Gonzaga and they rose to the occasion. It's not like, you know, Gonzaga was letting them stay in it. They
yeah.
fought hard to stay in that game.
They
And playing the way this tournament is set up and the way you play so many games and the way they've played these overtime games and everything, it really takes a toll on you. And
yeah,
I felt bad that they had to go to overtime in the first place because I felt like Gonzaga would have the edge just because if you look at how many minutes they've played in the last 2 weeks, UCLA, like you said, that's their third game going to overtime. I
yeah,
think one of them went to double overtime, if I'm remembering right. So that's a lot of minutes in a short period of time in an environment where your adrenaline's going
yeah.
and all kinds of stuff is going on anyway. And so I just knew when it went to overtime, I figured Gonzaga would have the edge. But it was a really good game. It was a game that, a lot of people say, like you do, call it a classic. For me, what that means to me is if I have a young team and we're doing film study, this is a game we're watching. This is a game we're studying on film. What did Gonzaga do? How did UCLA combat that? What did UCLA do? How did Gonzaga combat that? You know what I mean? The battles that went on, just man to man and coach to coach. Those are the things that you do film study on with another college team or even with a high school team where you sit and watch and study that film. And that's, to me, is what makes it a classic, is it's not just enjoyable to watch as a fan, but there are so many lessons to be learned from the film if you're a player.
Yeah, but it's almost you couldn't tell who was the team that had won over 30 games straight.
Right.
You can tell.
No.
And, UCLA, I don't believe in moral victories, but you can say UCLA left it all on the field and
Absolutely.
they went toe for toe with this team because there was times in which, Gonzaga really hasn't been tested or challenged all year. And UCLA gave them everything, where there were times in this game that I thought UCLA was going to pull it out. So I'm kind of surprised that they did not win because I've always said Gonzaga has a choke in them. And, so far I've been proven wrong, but UCLA, gave them everything they had and they had to come back and withstand a lot. They took them to overtime. I thought it was going to go into double overtime, if not for a half court shot that went in on the money, they would have been going into double overtime.
Yeah.
And who's to say, who would have had the momentum because, when Gonzaga did get up, they came back. When UCLA got up, you kind of expected Gonzaga to come back. They're the number one team in the nation. But I was just really impressed with how UCLA moved, how they, moved the ball around, shot selection, their defense, at times.
They have nothing to be sad or ashamed about. They should hold their heads high, tip their hat to get, they lost to a better team. It is what it is. But they threw everything they could at them.
Right. And then also, the game against Michigan. So, UCLA came off of a hard game as well. That game against Michigan didn't go in overtime, did it? It was regulation. But still, down to the wire.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they played as hard as they possibly can. So what are your thoughts about who's going to win tonight? I kind of feel like Baylor might pull it out.
I do too. I'm with
liking
you.
The way they play.
Gonzaga's got some choke in him, and we haven't seen it yet. And I feel like they're kind of riding high on where they're at, and they're a little bit full of themselves.
Yeah.
And I think as much as I'm unhappy with Baylor and what's gone on in their athletic programs the last few years,
I know, me too.
I'm not actually rooting for them. I feel like I have no dog in this fight. It's not even like if Baylor wins, I can get back into it in any of my brackets. I'm out. There's no chance for me. So I can just sit back and enjoy the basketball of it without anything else going on, which I hate in the round of 32, but I don't mind in the final. Like early in the tournament, I need to have somebody to root for if I'm gonna sit through all these games. At this point, I can just sit back with a bottle of water and a bowl of popcorn, and I can just enjoy the game. But I completely agree with you that Gonzaga is the kind of team that isn't mentally in it every minute of the game, and Baylor can get out on them and get away from them, and they may not be able to catch it back up again. So we'll see who shows up tonight to play.
And then if Baylor gets hot, because they're the number one 3-point shooting team in the nation, so if they get hot on a couple streaks, watch
Gonzaga
out.
doesn't defend the three very well.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So you're right. You're absolutely right. If they get off and go, that has to be their game plan. Get off and go.
Yeah, so were you just referring to some of the recent issues with Baylor? Because I'm referring to when Patrick Dennehy was killed by Carlton Dotson back in the day, back when I think I was in college. So, and the cover-up that ensued. Right? Yeah, the cover-up that ensued. That was really, really bad, though. And there was a cover-up, too. So I'm like,
But it's systemic at Baylor. So they say they fixed it, they clean it up, and then a couple years later, you start to hear things again. So,
ain't it a Christian university too?
I think so. Allegedly.
But you know what? Did you get a chance to watch any of the women's Final Four at all?
No, I did not.
Yeah, so I got a chance, I peeked in yesterday into the game between Stanford and Arizona, and that game went to a 1-point win. Stanford won the national title for the first time since, I believe, 1992. I didn't really know what Arizona was going to do because Stanford pretty much had some trees right there in the low block, like 4 of their players, and maybe the point guard might have been the shortest. But when I looked at that team, like those girls were averaging like maybe 6'4", 6'5". Like they were tall. So, at the end of the day, that height won out and the ability to defend. That McDonald player for Arizona, had the ball in her hands at the last minute. And it was three trees in front of her. So there wasn't much she was able to do with it. And,
you can't coach height.
Yeah, and people were beating her up today, talking about there was open people. She probably didn't see them.
I didn't see him.
So yeah, I mean,
like Baker trying to look over the offensive line. Yeah. Oh, did I say that?
Yeah, man, it was bad. Like these were some girl trees. So just an excellent weekend of college basketball. So it's about to be over tonight. We're gonna see who wins. Best of luck to both teams. I don't really
snuck up on me.
Yeah.
I was flipping around the channels and the Indians were. I'm like, holy crap, it's baseball season. When did baseball season get here?
And
it completely snuck up on me, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that when we get back because today is the Cleveland Indians home opener. They are down right now 2-0. Looks like heading into the 7th inning. So, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that when we come back. So, you are listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. We'll be right back.
WOVU and the Alpha.
OVU 95.9 FM. This is your girl, Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports, and I'm here with Cleveland Cake doing our 1-2 on a Monday. Welcome back. We just finished talking about the NCAA tournament. We do not know who's going to win tonight, but best of luck to both teams. And I just want a good game. That's all I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep me on the edge of my seat. I guess, I'll root for Gonzaga. Kind of have an issue with Baylor. But like I said, I just can't get in Gonzaga because they look like the intramural team that showed up. So, it is what it is. I'm just saying, they look like they showed up at Larkins Hall at Ohio State. I just can't get into them. But, I think it'll be a really good game. You got a team that's undefeated going, for a perfect record. And you got Baylor who's trying to play spoiler. And I think they could with a high power offense. So we'll see what happens. But Cleveland K, what do you mean that baseball has snuck up on you?
It snuck up on me this year. I don't know where.
How does that happen?
I don't know where I've been at for the last couple months. We haven't really talked about spring training. We haven't talked about the pitching rotation and who was going to be there. I think part of it happened last week with Frankie signing that extension. I'm like, I don't know how you make a big deal about someone signing an extension when he hadn't even played a game there yet. Like, you just got there and you're like, he signed his extension. I'm like, what? So you offered him a contract. You offered him a long-term deal. It's not, I don't know. For me, an extension means somebody who's been on your team for a couple of years, got a couple of years left. Nick Chubb, and you assigned him to an extension to keep him longer. So he signed his deal. He got his money. He looks all happy to be in New York. It just, I don't know. I think it kind of turned my baseball blinders on for a little bit when he left. And I kind of wasn't into spring training as much as I usually am. And I missed apparently an entire month worth of baseball. But regular season's here. We lost 2 out of 3, right, to Detroit, which is never a good sign.
We're about to lose 1 out of 3 to the Kansas City Royals, too, it appears. Right now, the Cleveland Indians are down 3-0. I don't have the play-by-play in front of me right now, but something just happened, either a home run or, a run. But right now, the Indians only have 2 hits in the game, and Kansas City Royals have 6 hits. So that's where we're at right now. So,
That's no bueno.
But Kay, you didn't really miss nothing in spring training because they went like 8-18. So there really wasn't anything to talk about. There were just lots of concerns to start off with when you think about the body of work. Pretty much our starting pitchers, which was supposed to be our strength, kind of got beat up. And, this will be the tail of the tape going into the season. As your starting pitcher is kind of strong, looking at how Logan Allen started today, I'll be curious to see how Tristan McKenzie does and if Tristan should be the number 4 and Logan Allen should be the number 5. But
who started today? Who started for the Indians home opener?
Logan Allen.
Yeah.
Never heard of him before, have you? I see you flashing those eyes, Kate. I see you blinking.
What happened to, Shane Bieber?
Well, he started against Detroit. And
right. But what happened to having somebody good start your home opener? Like, we used to have competitions for that. That used to be a thing, right? Between Corey Kluber and Shane Bieber. And we've had a number of sort of internal competitions because whoever started opening day, it was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And then when I heard Logan Allen was starting opening day, I was like, who?
Well, it's weird when you start.
Is that going to be my thoughts on my entire pitching rotation? Because I'm not happy with the rotation right now. I don't care how many wins and losses we had in spring training. I keep wanting to call it preseason. In spring training, it's about getting them ready for the season, figuring out what your rotation is going to be, figuring out what your matchups look like in that at that early stage, figuring out who did their workouts in the offseason and came ready to play and who didn't, figuring out who's got the Rona and what they're doing about it, and
who hit the weight room,
keeping people safe, figuring out who's been hitting the gym and not hitting the gym, who's been hitting the pasta buffet
Frankie,
when they should have been hitting the salad bar.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, I playing around with some of the guys in the outfield and infield and the defensive end of the ball and moving some people into some different positions and seeing how they do. I haven't seen a lot of that. Even looking back over the stats after I realized I'd missed 3 weeks of spring training, I started looking at who was playing what positions and what they were doing. And I'm just like, it feels like Tito came into the season with, we're going to do this, 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 and this, or Sandy Alomar Jr. or whoever it is that's running this team right now. And I haven't seen them make a lot of adjustments for anything. They haven't tried to figure out who fits best in the right place. And when you lose someone like Frankie, when you lose someone who was, you know me, I'm going to relate everything to football, who was the quarterback of your defense, who knew exactly where his second baseman and first baseman and third baseman were at all times. There was like this unspoken magic that would go on in the infield. You've got to figure out a way to see who's got that chemistry and get that lineup figured out. And the 3 games I've watched so far this year, I have not felt like we got it figured out. Eventually the bats will get hot. We have not faced in these 4 games any pitchers that we should not be able to get hits on, that we should not be able to score on. It's about just mentally everything else. So, I mean, I'll give the bats a little more time to warm up. I'm nervous long-term prospect-wise about our pitching rotation. I'm just not feeling right now like they just need some time to get in a groove the way I do about their bats. So we'll see. I'm very cautious about this season and what it's going to mean. And for me, historically, I measure this team every year against their record versus Detroit. Whether that makes sense or not.
Well, it didn't start off good.
The seasons that we went 3-13 against Detroit, we didn't make the playoffs. The seasons that we went, 14-2 or 10-6, those are the years that we had really good teams and we went to the playoffs. It doesn't even seem to matter when I'm looking at it on how good or bad Detroit is. It's one of those teams where when we play them, our strengths are emphasized and our weaknesses are emphasized. So losing 2 out of 3 to them in Detroit makes me a little sad. We'll see what happens going forward. Eventually they're going to have to come here and maybe we'll face and play them a little better from here than we did on the road. It's rough to open the season on the road like that. It was cold. The weather was kind of crappy. So I'm taking that with a grain of salt. I'm just saying that's where my head's at right now. And now we got Kansas City at home, so it should be a little easier playing them here than it would be on the road. We'll see.
Well, not only did we lose Francisco Lindor, but we also lost Carlos Santana. And Carlos was a veteran for us who displayed a veteran leadership, had been with the club for almost 10 years, Mr. Cleveland outside of Frankie. So losing that bat, losing that glove was imperative as well. When you go down this roster now, Jordan Luplow, that's another person who you can be like, who came from Tampa Bay. But, right now.
But who's the face of this team? Who's going to be doing Mr. Hero commercials and Nissan of North Olmsted commercials?
Jose Ramirez. If he chooses to speak, English. He doesn't choose to speak English, so I don't really see. Well, he knows English, but I don't really see him doing too many commercials.
Absolutely correctly. He chooses not to speak English, but he understands just fine. And
so I think that he could be more marketable. He could be more marketable if but that might not be his thing, and that might be why. And that's perfectly
fine,
okay.
But the Indians need a face of the franchise.
Well, that's going to be Shane Bieber. It doesn't have to be a batter. It can be your pitcher. It'll be Shane Bieber. I mean, Cy Young Award winner, All-Star MVP. That's the dude right now. And you don't think your pitcher would be the face of the franchise, but that's just where we're at right now. Or you can do Franmil Reyes. I mean, Ahmed Rosario, who came from the Minnesota Twins. It's just kind of hard.
I just feel like the face of the franchise is a household name, is someone everyone knows, even if they're not huge baseball fans. And for me, it has to be someone who plays more than once every 5 or 6 days.
This team is very young, too.
It is
very young.
But this has been a problem the Indians have had since the 90s, right?
Which aspect?
Well, in the 90s, if I told someone, name me an Indian, they'd name me 5. They'd name me 6. Well, if I told someone, name me an Indian now, I'm lucky if I can get 3.
This team,
and a lot of them will name people that aren't even here anymore. I have to say, no, Cookie Carrasco in here anymore.
Yeah.
Carlos Santana in here anymore. You know what I mean?
Your buddy. So, Mike Clevenger, he ain't here no more. Trevor Bauer, he was a staple. He's gone.
He's gone.
It's just this team might be rebuilding, Kate, and that might be one of the things that we don't want to put out there.
I wish they were better at the social media and the marketing aspect of their players.
That's
And
baseball overall.
they're going to come. It is absolutely is baseball overall. But when you have a sport like baseball, where you have serious limitations on what the small market teams can do with their money, and they need to find ways to make money, one of the ways you do that is by introducing the players to the fans, getting the fans to fall in love with the player, want to come and see him play. You can do that with young players that you don't have to pay a lot of money for. You can get people excited about, Franmil Reyes or Luplo or, any of these kids that are on the team. Do we still have Bradley Zimmer? I love me some
Yeah,
Bradley.
Bradley Zimmer is he's still on the team, but
There
having
are
some
marketing
issues.
things they could do to get people more excited to sell more tickets to the ballpark. Now, maybe with COVID and the limitations, they're not worried. I don't know. Did they consider
They can
today a
still
sellout?
market though.
What did they
Huh?
sell? Did they sell a third of the tickets for today?
13,000, I think, is a capacity because they're only allowed to be at 30%.
That's what I was saying.
Probably
So,
not.
yeah.
I don't know. I have to check the gate. I'm not sure. They didn't give a count because, I was only able to watch to a certain point until, I had to leave out. But, for some people, it's a year and a half since they've been there. Hayden Grove from Cleveland.com, he was like, it's been a year and a half since I've been here. And, I was fortunate to be able to do one of their spring training games in Cleveland. And that was, July of last year. So, almost a year. Yeah, it's just weird. I'm happy baseball is back, but one of the things that we have to think about is that this team has a $35 million payroll. With Frankie and Cookie being gone and Carlos being gone as well. So lowest payroll in baseball officially. So that is an indicator that this team is rebuilding, and a lot of people are scared to put that out there. But that's pretty much where this team is at right now, and it's going to be a long, frustrating season.
And I used to feel better about our farm system than I do right now. There was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, when people made remarks about the Indians rebuilding, I'm like, yeah, that just means we're pulling some more people up from Akron and up from Columbus and up from the AAA and AA teams and that. We had, I thought, a really strong farm system, and that has turned into a system.
John Hart is gone.
We're sending people to other teams.
John Hart is gone.
John Hart is gone, but he's been gone for a while.
I miss him.
What would happen to our farm system when he left? But we've done okay.
The farm system of the farm system is the Cleveland Indians, and we are the farm system for every team in Major League Baseball. And with that being said, we're going to have to take a really quick break. You are listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU and 95.9 FM. We will be right back.
WOVU has brought you
WVU 95.9 FM. This is Her in the Huddle with your girl, Rachel Hill, the first and Miss Cleveland KKR. Cleveland K. Hey, so right now, postponements have already begun. So the Mets and Nationals are postponed due to COVID issues. Is there something that we can anticipate happening a lot this year, or is this going to be an example?
Yes.
Why so?
Because men are idiots.
Okay,
is
well,
that sexist?
I'm not going to disagree with that.
Professional athletes are idiots. There
I'm not
are
gonna disagree.
enough of them, not all of them, but there are enough of them who are immature, who don't understand the rules, who don't understand that even a year later, COVID is still a thing, who don't wear their masks and wash their hands and stay away from places where people are gathered, and they're going to get the Rona, and then they're going to share it with their teammates, and then they're out. And it's going to happen all year because it doesn't seem to matter. We had guys doing this in football at New Year's Eve parties and at gatherings over the holidays and stuff. They don't understand. They don't have the maturity to understand that their behavior affects an entire sport, and it affects an entire fan base. And they don't have the maturity to understand that there are times in your life, #adulting, when you don't get to do what you want because you have to do what you need to do. You have to handle your business. I can't buy this candy bar because I need to buy milk.
Yeah, but we haven't even got through a week of the season yet.
Right.
And we're already having these issues.
Exactly why when, if we were a month into it, I would be like, you know what? Isolated incident. People forgot. It's okay. We're not even a week into the regular season. And we've already got teams that have exposure issues and they're doing contact tracing and all that kind of stuff. If it's already happening, what were they doing during spring training? My guess is somebody came home from spring training, went a little wild when they got back, and now they're in trouble.
Yeah, it's that exposure because, they were off in a bubble and they were around each other. And then, they got back home and there was a picture, Nick Whitgren's wife, posted a picture with him and, his child. And, that is fine. I understand you can't be without your family, but this is kind of how it goes. You come back and you are around people who are in general society. I don't know what the rules are for the spouses and wives and their family members as far as being out around people. So who knows who they're coming in contact with? It should be the same
thing, right? Like if you know that your man, there's 10 days left in spring training and your man's about to come home and he's going to have a couple days before his season starts. Don't you self-quarantine? Don't you, when you got those kind of paychecks coming in and you don't want to risk that money, don't you have enough common sense to say, maybe I need to limit my exposure to other people for a few days so that when he comes home, I didn't catch something and give it to him.
But when you are not used to being held accountable for anything, you're always willing to risk it all. It's never a risk to you because you know that there won't be any consequences. There's not any consequences for, the wives. There are for the players. But, they know they still going to get their game checks. That's just how it goes. But that's the thing about not caring about other people. And speaking about caring about other people, what are your thoughts about Major League Baseball pulling the All-Star game out of Atlanta due to some of the harshest voting restrictions passed since the Jim Crow era?
So the National Basketball Association pulled the All-Star game out of Charlotte a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
It is time for professional sports in this country to start flexing their social justice muscle, especially when the players in your league, whichever league it is, are the people who those laws are designed to hurt and to limit and to put down. And so you have to, as a business, look at not only your fan base, but also your employees. And I think it's wonderful. And I think if this is the kind of action it takes for lawmakers in some of these areas to think twice, there are economic repercussions. So we talk about, the people all the time talk about how you have freedom of speech in this country and you can say and do whatever you want. And that's absolutely true. But whenever someone brings that argument to me, I remind them, it doesn't say that you're free from repercussions. I can't just say whatever I want at work and think my boss isn't going to fire me. That has nothing to do with freedom of speech. This is a situation where it's okay for athletes to express an opinion and it's okay to flex corporate muscle And if a corporation like the NBA or the MLB or the NFL wants to say, you know what, we're not going to spend our money here, we're not going to give you any extra more money here, they're not limiting the games of the teams that are from that area. They're just saying you're not getting any of the extra stuff because the way you're handling things isn't right. So why should your state benefit from the money that will be generated by an all-star game, by holding a draft, by a convention? There are companies who pulled conventions out of Atlanta and moved them to other cities. So it's not just Major League Baseball. That's just who we're hearing about because we're tuned in to listening to sports. But these things happen a lot in the regular business world. And I applaud the fact that it's starting to happen in sports.
Right. And the thing is that, the Republican leadership, I think overall fails to understand it is this country is a capitalistic country, right?
Yep.
Okay. So these are private businesses.
Yep.
Correct. Who shares of themselves with the public. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So these businesses can do whatever they want to do. And coincidentally, this was going to be the celebrating of Hank Aaron at this All-Star game, because Hank Aaron is one of the, most legendary Atlanta Braves, ever. So it was supposed to be a special celebration. And he just, passed away not too long ago. Rest in peace, Hank Aaron. But, and the move kind of surprised me a little bit. I was on board with baseball having the Black Lives Matter. But, to be honest, baseball to me really, and maybe they are starting to, walk the walk now, as opposed to just talking the talk. We can get into a whole conversation about baseball and the racial, issues. But, when less than 10% of your league is actually Black, I don't use the term African American, but when less than 10% of your league is Black, I wasn't expecting them to take the stand, that they were taking. But,
what? Conversations, I know someone who told me that conversations have gone on amongst players and a number of teams' leadership because the overwhelming assumption by everyone is that baseball's brown, right? It's very brown. It's Latino. It's Latin American players. It's, that kind of thing. And those players have made an effort to let the teams know that they're being discriminated against too.
Yeah,
it's not just Black players in the NFL or the NBA or the handful that are in Major League Baseball that are being discriminated against. It's people of color, and brown is a color. And so there have been some very quietly held conversations, and players have made it clear to leadership that they're feeling the same pain, whether they're from the Dominican, whether they're from Venezuela, or whether they're from, East LA or whatever, that they're feeling the same thing and that they're being discriminated against. And I applaud the fact that it's being done quietly and action is being taken. They don't need to make a big deal about it. They don't need to have some big sign that says, hey, we had meetings with players and we're going to do something. They're just handling it. They're doing it.
Well, I'm glad they flexed their muscle. I'm glad they flexed their muscle because these things at the ballot box affect them as well. Especially, these, rules are specifically targeted to, people of color in lower income areas. And they are people of brown skin, not just Black people in those areas. So, and not even just Atlanta, what's taking place in other, states as well across this country. In Florida, I believe Florida is coming up with the same laws. It's always Florida. But that it affects all of us especially if you're a minority. So, at the end of the day, you need to band together against the people who oppress us all. So, I'm glad that baseball has taken this stand. I'm very surprised. And people are like, well, do you think the Masters would do it too? I said, absolutely not. They too white. That's not going to happen. But, it would be nice because wrong is wrong. And that's the thing. This is wrong. Are you going to stand on the side of right or you're going to stand on the side of wrong? And unfortunately, there's too many people who are standing on the side of wrong, who willfully will stand on the side of wrong, because this isn't about voter ID. And you're being intellectually lazy if you think that this is specifically targeting voter ID. And I encourage you to read up and stop being so stupid, because it's not about that. But people are too racist to see what it really is for. And they're ignoring that. So I'm glad Major League Baseball has taken taking a stand, I respect them even more. I've had some issues with baseball, even though that's my first love. I've had some personal issues with them, but this is something to me that makes me happy, and it tread in the right direction. And you hear these people say, well, I don't want to mix politics and sports or da 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 da. You know what? Human rights are nothing political at all. So
agreed. And I don't look at it as mixing, politics and sports. It's a company having a social justice voice. Because who else is going to do it, right? If you want to affect change, the people in power are the ones who have to affect the change.
And guess what
I
people
don't have the power to
understand?
do that.
What do people understand more than anything?
Right.
Money.
They understand sports. They understand their bottom line. The arguments I hear from people, and I heard it said about the NBA when they pulled out of Charlotte, and it'll be said about Major League Baseball now, is, it's not like they took a really big stand. It's not like they stuck their neck out there and it cost them anything. They'll just move the All-Star game to another city. They'll still make their money. And that's fine, but Atlanta won't make its money for that game. And that's the argument that the Masters tournament is going to use, is that, well, we don't have the option. We can't go anywhere else. We can't hold this tournament somewhere else. You know what? It would be a more powerful statement if you canceled it than it will be than any other statement you can make than moving it to another venue or whatever. There's still a statement to be made, but I find it more helpful when Major League Baseball does something like this than when a single player has a press conference and says something, because this is, as you said, a capitalistic company. Businesses can put their money wherever they want to put it or not put it, and they can flex their muscle this way. And it'll only help. It should only help the morale of their employees, of the players, to understand that they're being heard, and hopefully it'll help the fans as well.
Yeah, and guess who said that they are in full support of what Major League Baseball is doing?
Who?
Tito Francona. And and a lot of people on social media wasn't happy that he take that stance. But, good for Tito, because he's standing on the side of right. So, Cleveland Kate, we're going to head into our last break. I know you got a couple minutes left with us. So, we're going to be right back. You're listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. We'll be right back.
Listeners, we understand that COVID-19 has taken a toll on our
the host of Tens, The Eric Nolan Show.
Yo, what it do is your girl DJ Coco Z, and you rocking out to WOVU 95.9 FM.
All right, Cleveland K, before you go, get a chance to take a look at what's going on with Justin Fields and Mac Jones and Curb Street.
Girl, I don't know why everyone's all up in Justin Fields' business. He's fine. Mac Jones has had some DUIs. He's had some issues. They're very public. I think they're just coming down on Justin because I made my prediction that he would go number 1 in the draft over top of Sunshine, that Urban would pick him to play in Jacksonville. Now I hear they're looking for a quarterback in the New York Jets. So who knows what's going to happen in the top of that draft. I think it's just people that are butthurt and don't want to see a Buckeye go top 3 in the draft. And I don't think any of it's going to matter because people know who Justin Fields is. They're not going to listen to these rumors. He's going to be fine. He's going to be top 3 pick in the draft.
But the thing is, how he's being labeled. And I know Chris Styles is going to be joining us in a second on this because, he's one of the biggest Buckeye haters of all time. But why is Justin Fields being labeled with character issues? And, those character issues, rumor has it, but those have been debunked because you pretty much are.
But you see, so some of that is he's going to suffer from the behavior of his predecessors, right? So look what happened to Zeke Elliott. He got out of Ohio State, lost his damn mind, got into some trouble with a girl who apparently lied about all of it, but then he goes to Dallas, and he's had some issues in Dallas, which makes you wonder what went on when he was here and what they swept under the rug. And I know none of that has anything to do with Justin Fields, but people get this thing in their mind. We talked about it a little bit earlier with this sense of entitlement and nobody telling people you can't behave that way and there being consequences to behavior. I do not think Justin Fields has character issues. I do not think this is a long-term issue, but they're going to paint it that way and they're going to use former Buckeyes as the thing that's in the back of your mind of, well, maybe he is having issues to try to make people hesitate on taking him. But I also believe that NFL scouts are smarter than that. And they're not going to fall for it.
He hasn't done anything wrong, though. So I'm trying to understand, why he's being assessed with something called character issues when Mac Jones has 2 DUIs, which I didn't even know
because all you have to do is whisper that someone has character issues and people don't ask for details. They don't ask for proof. It just sits in the back of their mind and they make judgments. And again, I'm trying to lower his draft stock and I don't think it'll work. Because the people who know and the people who need to know will research it, find out it's not true. They will debunk it, and that'll be the end of that.
But aren't 2 DUIs character issues, which should cause somebody to fall mightily down in the draft? 2 DUIs. How do you even get 2 DUIs in college?
You ain't even old enough to drink. So what went with the DUI? There had to be an underage drinking. It couldn't have just been DUIs. Is he old enough to drink yet?
I don't know. And guess what?
I think he's 21 now. I'm just saying.
But the cops didn't let him off. He played for Alabama, which is crazy.
Wow.
So that's saying a lot right there.
Yeah, but what color is his skin?
He's white.
We're talking about.
They didn't let him get away with it, though. They didn't let him get away with the DUI. So I'm shocked.
I don't know how to say this. His punishments for those were not as bad as they could have been.
Yeah.
Is all I'm going to say.
That's a way that they can do that, too.
All I'm going to say.
Like they're just there on paper.
Yes. They're on paper.
And then, so that's what I'm getting at without, saying it out loud is how is Justin Fields being characterized with, character issues when Mac Jones has the 2 DUIs.
But, because, again, this is silly.
The media.
Season. This is silly season. All kinds of people are going to whisper and it's like making spaghetti. They cook their noodles. They're going to throw it at the wall and see which ones stick and see what they can do to spin things however they want to spin it to get their client a better draft place and to get more looks. And at the end of the day, it won't matter.
Can you hear DJ Chris Styles?
I cannot. Laramie Tunsil had a video released with him smoking something with a huge gas mask on. Dude still got drafted, still got paid. It won't matter. I got to go. Tell Chris
All right,
he can
Kate.
keep his Buckeye hating to himself. I don't even need to hear it. He's a little judgy, and I'm good.
He loves you too. All right, Cleveland K, we love you. All right, DJ Chris Styles. I've seen something on ESPN. I've seen it on ESPN, not necessarily the article, but you know. Well, Kirk Herbstreit, Dan Orlovsky did put something out, and Kirk Herbstreit got on him and made a video and got on his Twitter talking about why are you saying such things? And then Dan Orlovsky did go ahead and release a second video saying, you know, these are just things that he had heard, but he followed back up and fact checked his sources with Ohio State, and they told him that, you know, there were no issues and that, you know, Justin Fields did work hard. But the fact that somebody Well, he got a lot of pushback about it, though. It was a story, and Dan Orlovsky got a lot of backlash about it and had to readdress it. But yeah, it's damaging enough with one person. That's still damaging. But why damage his draft stock by putting something out there like that that's untrue without going fact checking your sources? Yeah. Mel Kiper trash. But it's like they're trying to make up bad stuff about him. You I didn't know. I just found that out. You do? You think so? Who would you say is the more accurate passer, though? Yeah, I don't like them trying to, you know, that if people do believe that stuff, that can affect, you know, millions of dollars for him. All right, well, you know, I just want nothing but the best for Justin. You know what I'm saying? Fella. Okay, so Ohio State does not produce the best quarterbacks. Okay, I know. Thanks for rubbing it in. We know this. But Justin could be an exception to the rule. He could be. Okay, well, even still, he still graduated from Ohio State. So, you know, he's still Ohio State, just like Joe Burrows graduated from Ohio State, but he played for, you know, LSU. Still graduated from Ohio State. He's the Buckeye. He's a Buckeye. So we got 1 minute left. What's your prediction for tonight, man? Okay. Yeah. And 3-point shooting. Yeah. Should be exciting. That was not false, man. It was out there for everybody to see on ESPN. That's where I get my stuff from, man. I know, thank you, and I'm glad for you too. Talking me off the ledge because I gotta protect Justin. He a national treasure. He beat Clemson. He a national treasure. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. See you later.